Shalom. All honor, praise, and glory be to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Wahakodash Wakah. Double honors to the apostles and the elders at the great millstone who were well. Peace and blessings to the brothers teaching the truth across the four corners of the earth where we have been scattered to the rest of you believers out there of the Israelite nation, women, children, friends of the prophets, men, newly awakened Israelites tuning into the faith. As I said, of the Israelite nation, which consisted of so-called blacks, Hispanics, so-called Negroes, African Americans, Latinos, Latinas, Native American Indians, and West Indians. To you, I say peace and blessings as well. Shalom wa barakium. And to any new listeners out there, yes, we proclaim ourselves to be the biblical Israelites, the descendants of the biblical Israelites. All right. The Borgias, power and fortune. So pretty much this is for those of you out there that may have heard about Cesare Borgia and all these other different, I guess, how some people could take it, antics or theories, but no, these people were truly real. This man truly existed, and as you can see, I have a book right here by Paul Strathern, and he goes into the life of the Borgias. So this is just proof. One day a while ago, been knew about this book, but actually went into it and decided to just do some coverage on it, go into it a little bit, because this is true history, right? True story. This is another form of damnatio memoriae as well, too, because the reason why Cesare Borgia is relevant, well, before I say that, let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see, the book is called The Borgias, and it says power and fortune. Let's get the quote at the bottom. Strathern has an explanatory narrative verve and keeps the pages turning. Financial Times. So this is a real family, man. A real Edomite family who were completely wicked. And this book covers it, the history. And as you can see, famous Cesare Borgia, Borgia. A lot of brothers say it different, but it's all talked about in here. So just to give you just a quick overview, because I'm not going to go too far into it, pretty much this is a pretty wicked family, an Edomite family, who were basically warlords headed by Alexander the Sixth, who was, that's pretty much a title given to the Pope, the papal father, if you will, of Cesare Borgia, whose name was Rodrigo Borgia. He had a pretty big so-called family. They was just pretty much destructive tyrants, just your normal Edomites. It's a possibility they could have been Amalekites, but they are so-called Spaniards. And pretty much they were taking over Rome, Italy to be exact. Well, central Italy to be exact, running it out of the capital of Rome. Now, they did that by many different they had many different avenues of getting to that. Let's see where I want to go. Let's go here. You know, they were a wicked family, very wicked, man. The reason why this is relevant because Cesare Borgia is who people believe the image of our Messiah to have gotten based off of now, right? Wrongfully due to the iconoclasm and due to uh, the house that iconoclasm is under, which is Damnatio Memoriae, the erasing of the true Israelites. You so-called the history of you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, right? The descendancy of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Before I get going into it, here he is right here. It says Cesare Borgia, the first man ever to resign from the College of Cardinals and said to be the handsomest man in Italy, gambled everything in attempt to make himself a great secular prince. He might have succeeded except for the one turn of fate that he failed to foresee. So ultimately he got killed because he actually was being instructed by his father to he was a commander of the papal military, thus showing you these people are wicked because his father is a pope and they ran what's known today as the Roman Catholicism. Now if you notice, it gives us some dates on this stuff. Let's see, it's a good page. Get something. We just want to get a good estimate. Okay, let's go to page, I believe it's 266. Okay, that's a good one. So you got a rough time, roughly 1502, right? So 1502 is when Cesare Borgia was alive and well. He was actually born before King James, and but he was actually born during the time where blacks were ruling Europe. So at the time that King James was born, King James, he was having attempts on his life by, different Edomites due to him being a real Israelite and not wanting to deal with anybody going against the Father's will, which is why he was pretty much motivated by the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua to get the Lord's word translated out of the Hebrew and Greek scriptures um, in what we know to be the outright standard version, in which all translations are conformable. So, from making a long story short, getting to the point, pretty much, like I said, just giving an overview of what some things these people have been accounted of doing, right, in history. One, they existed. Two, Cesare Borgia, due to his father, was set up to wickedly rule and try to conquer Rome completely. And they would do it. They had many avenues of getting that done. Some, they would, he was pretty much a real treacherous dude, man. Like he would, uh, all his colleagues, they were known for killing siblings, um, cunningly marrying into families, incest, all these different type of things, man, just to dominate and rule. And another one of the things, and all these things, the Pope, right? A man supposedly of was known as papacy, right? Supposedly of the church, which these guys were all Edomites. He was appointing his son to do so, right? So it was a succession in line in which it's believed. Uh, I don't have it in the book right here. I won't pull it up, but it's believed. I have articles that Cesare Borgia, he actually killed his older brother. I believe his name is Giovanni. You see, known as the infants Romanus, the child who appeared in the Borgia family, whose parentage became a source of scandalous speculation. So, pretty much, um, his body supposedly was found floating in the river because he was actually appointed to take over as commander for the papal military. So it was believed that Cesare Borgia did that to just succeed. And the guys that he hung around with, they were known for doing the same things. I'll get an instance of it really quick. We'll just read a little bit of it. This is in order to page 260, 270. It says, in order to reinforce this point, Alexander the Sixth, which is Rodrigo, Cesare's father, decided to give his son a lesson in statecraft. For Cesare Borgia to defeat his enemies, he needed to outwit them. Only cunning would enable him to overcome his untrustworthy Italian commander. So all these Edomites were just snakes, as always. It says Alexander VI informed his son that when he returned to Rome, he intended to send a dispatch to Paolo and Giuli Orsini, ordering them as commanders in the papal army to report to their general captain. Slaki, their captain general. They were to join Borgia on a campaign to take, that's what we know to be Bologna, to take Bologna. So I'll just read it as, man, or Bologna. It says would seek this would seek out their loyalties. So he was constantly trying to, this guy, they was taking many cities and had many garrisons set up. And he was doing it in a just the most treacherous ways you could do it. It says they were to join Borgia in a campaign to take Bologna. This would seek out their loyalties, right? Because most thirsty Edomites will want in on that. But anyway, despite their treacherous machinations, it says the Orsini brothers remained unaware of precisely how much Cesare Borgia knew about or suspected their lack of loyalty. Bologna was the territory of Bentivoglio, one of the conspirators, and their reactions to the Pope's orders would bring matters out into the open. Cesare attempted in vain to dissuade Alexander VI from taking this provocative action. For once, his strategy was ahead of his father's. So they were both wicked, but his dad, he pretty much was a very wicked man, man. He was putting his son in line to turn the papacy, right, into an inheritance. So only the Borgias will take hold of papacies, aka be popes, cardinals, all these different types of these different type of things, because Cesare Borgia was a cardinal, I believe, at the age of 15 due to his father, and his father was elected, uh, ironically, in the year 1492 into papacy, the sixth pope, which is what the term Alexander the Sixth alludes to. And it's the same papacy that continues on today. These Edomites were trying to take over and make it an inheritance, and it actually. So if it was set off, if it was, and it was working, if it was running off wickedness, then it explains now. It should show you now the wickedness of these so-called popes and the things they do. This whole Catholicism. Catholicism, it says the third is of three is one of three branches of so-called Christianity. It's so-called one of three branches of so-called Christianity, and with it being the largest one, Roman Catholicism being the largest one. But actually, Roman Catholicism has, so you have so-called Christians, you got Catholics. Catholicism is more, you really can't say which one's more, they work hand in hand, which one's more detrimental. Catholicism was kept around and eventually used to conquer you the so-called Latinos, so-called Native American Indians that were in Americas due to the conquest, the conquistadors who were Spaniards, in which Cesare Borgia was. And his father was elected in the year 1492, which is a movie that goes in on this true story, right? But the detail of why this is important has been erased, and you will only hear about these people mention the things that make Cesare Borgia really get a lot of buzz, especially with the awakening of the Hebrew Israelites, and that's how we say that his image was put in the image of Yahushua, who people ignorantly call Jesus Christ. Well, you got people out here that try to say that's just a theory, but you have a lot of so-called scholars that second that notion. You see what I'm saying? Because it's true. That's why I'm getting how treacherous these guys were moving, man. And you will see, because another avenue to conquering is the Pope, right, who was orchestrating all of this, and his son was an outright cold-blooded killer, right? Another avenue they use would be the wicked man known as Leonardo da Vinci, who painted many different. But before we get that, let's get a little bit more of this so I can close this out. It says, for once his strategy was ahead of his father's, Borgia was by now a highly skilled military commander. See this? Unbeknown to his father, Caesare's apparent hesitation to taking Bologna had been for a good reason. Even if the Orsini brothers, along with Vitellozzo and Bagliani, had all joined him on the march to Bologna or Bologna, it says, Borgia knew that this would leave the southern Romana exposed to an attack by forces that Vitellozzo and the others would leave behind to guard their territories and their castles, which remained exposed along the Florentine border. Now, because we're going to go ahead and get to the nitty gritty. So we're not going to spend no time on this because it's not nothing too deep, man. Just knowing that this man really existed. So it says, when you read this book, like, this is a good page to read. When you read this book, you just get to learn just how treacherous these dudes was, man. This dude Alexander and his father, they went the extents these dudes went is crazy. So remember, he put out the order to target dudes that were already seen through. but they actually, were conspiring against them the whole time. The Orsini brothers. You see what I'm saying? So it says right here, the Orsini brothers' close friend Vitalizzo arrived on a stretcher, suffering from such a painful bout of syphilis that he could do little but groan. See? Now, when you jump up a little bit, the reason why their fathers used to pretty much counsel together. The sixth pope, the Orsini brothers' father used to counsel together. That's what it says. And pretty much, I believe they was going on. They had a council on overthrowing them. The Orsini brothers and their father had a council on overthrowing them. I believe is what this paragraph alludes to. Um, I'll get a little bit of it. It says, despite Caesare's decision to sit things out, it was Alexander VI's dispatch to the Orsini brothers from Rome that set things in motion. In a way, it was the combination of apparently contradictory strategies adopted by the Pope and his son, which would bring things to a head. Prompted by the urgency of their situation, the Orsini brothers turned to the senior member of their family for advice. This was Cardinal Giambattista Orsini. Earlier, I said his father, Salakia. It says when he had been a close friend of Alexander VI, their dinner parties together had become notorious on occasion, featuring. And notorious is when you're known for that's when you're famous for something that's not good. You see, they say their dinner parties together had become notorious on occasion, featuring scenes reminiscent of ancient Rome. So at this point, Rome had fell already. Rome fell like in like the fourth like 300 years after Yahushua's death, right? His crucifixion, he rose again, right? 300 to 400 year AD roughly. Let's see. However, Cardinal Orsini was more than just an another loose. So these Edomites have always been trying to bring this old thing back. It's just in them, man. Just how they doing now with America. It says aristocratic senior member of the church, Salakia. However, Cardinal Orsini was more than just another loose aristocratic senior member of the church. So these were elite dudes. It says he was in fact a man of considerable, if devious, intellectual capacity. Don't the scriptures say the heart of every one of them is deep? It says who was characterized by Machiavelli's, because Machiavelli was also appointed. He was he wasn't an avenue, but they probably had a reason for using him, but he was another man that was put alongside, which is how people know this history, because they got a lot of the sketches. They got a lot of the Machiavelli wrote a book called The Prince, and it was the Prince is talking about Cesare Borgia. So this should show you how this whole supposed theory, which is not truly a theory, is alluding to this man pretty much aiming for the stead of Yahweh Shah. Machiavelli called him the Prince. You see? But anyway, we'll keep going. And Machiavelli was a writer, philosopher, and some people believe him be cynical, which is pretty much just have a bad opinion. Pretty much don't think anybody's any good because he spoke so. I guess he told the truth, about him in such a blunt way that people, pretty much a cynical person is how they refer to it regarding Machiavelli and Cesare Borgia, pretty much is him being a hater. You see what I'm saying? Someone that's just, they only do what they do because they all about themselves. Like when people talk like that only and always, that's a cynical person. But anyway, it says, however, Cardinal we're gonna jump down. He was in fact a man of considerable, if devious, intellectual capacity, who was characterized by Machiavelli as a man of 1,000 tricks. You see, in response to Alexander's six summons to the Orsini brothers, Cardinal Giambattista Orsini decided to call a clandestine meeting of all the conspirators at the Orsini stronghold of La Magna. So these dudes, think about it. This the Pope, and this the stuff they got going on. These supposed to be old fathers, because that's what papacy is in Greek, is father. Papa, that's spelled Papa with C on the end, with a S C Y, papacy. You see, the old fathers of the church, thus going back to the Patris. It's all the same stuff, man. Because remember, Rome adopted Greek customs. See, and Patris is father in Greek. So papacy is the same. And what was the Patris? It was the bloodlines that was set up to rule and to keep the people at the bottom. You see, just how it is today. The oligarchy, the bloodlines, 13 bloodlines. This is the inception of all. This is true history. This stuff has always gone on, and it's continuing to this day. And we're gonna get my point. We're gonna close out. It says, however, Cardinal, we're gonna jump down. It says, so they was trying to take them out, man. And this man is a pope. What type of business do you have going on? Because they was killing and murdering and lying and marrying them way in the families. And remind you again, at this time, so-called blacks were still ruling. You know, a lot of parts of Europe. It says to call a clan, Slovakia. This was a fortress on the eastern. We're gonna jump down. They say those who attended were an unsavory bunch of pretty Slovakia. Those who attended were an unsavory bunch of petty tyrants and Codatiri. It says Paolo Orsini, the more prominent of the two brothers, was in fact illegitimate and known to be vain, weak, credulous, and mentally unstable. It says the Orsini brothers' close friend Vitellozzo arrived on a stretcher, suffering from such a painful bout of syphilis. And these dudes was nasty. It says that he could do little but groan. Oliverotto, Lord of Fermo and a typical small city tyrant, was notorious for his infinite treacheries and cruelties. He had gained his title by inviting all his relatives to a banquet and slaughtering them. So this is how you, amongst Edomite culture then, this was that dude. This is why they have all those crazy different hazing tactics when you want to step your way up on a ladder, right? In the so-called white man's world, you got to get in the casket and you got to do all these different weird things they show you in the movies. This stuff is real, man. Because their standard is a measurement of wickedness. You see what I'm saying? And profanity. You see? Just being, how profane can you be? So the man, he's notorious for his infinite treacheries and cruelties. He had gained his title by inviting all his relatives to a banquet and slaughtering them, including the kindly old uncle who had adopted him after his parents had died. You see, so it says, but Bagalaoni, who ruled the nearby city of Perugia, was, if anything, even worse, being described by Machiavelli as a man of a vicious heart. It's like a man of vicious heart and great cowardice, notorious throughout Italy for having committed incest with his sister and killing his cousins and nephews in order to become ruler of Perugia. See that? So this is the stuff that these people was involved in, man. And it's another good page right here. I won't get all this stuff, man, because it's just these dudes was just disgusting and completely treacherous. You see, they had think about it. Those are the type of men that was getting together to go up against the Pope, and these dudes were already conquering and ruling, which is the reason why. You see what I'm saying? So how do you think the Pope and them was playing? And it tell you a little bit right here. I'll get this and I'm gonna get that and close out. It says, first of all of it was necessary for the Pope and his son to patch up the differences that had emerged between them during the pursuance of their supposedly common policy. All his life, Alexander VI, right, Rodrigo had believed in the pursuance of patiently executed covert schemes. This was how he managed to remain vice chancellor to no less than 5 popes through 35 years. This was how he had learned to understand and manipulate the intricate workings of papal power. You see? The Pope was now growing visibly older and his dispositions had left him tired. You see? Now, they were having basically one-on-one meetings because they was trying to take all these different places. And they was trying to he was trying to keep his son on path to making the papacy become, it tell you right here, let's see. Yeah, when Alexander VI died, it says his son will be in an unassailable position to take charge of Rome. He could then decide that owing to the seriousness of the unresolved power position in Naples, it would not be possible to hold a conclave immediately. In the ensuing power vacuum, he will be obliged to take on the powers of the Pope on a temporary basis. Having thus established himself, it would be all but impossible to dislodge him. He will receive the backing of the French king for supporting Louis VII's claim to Naples. The papacy would then become a Borgia inheritance. You see, they was trying to make it's crazy, man. And the dudes, a lot of these kings they were dealing with were Israelites. The Charles, the king, all the kings of France were black. They're so-called black people. They were Israelites, man. Especially during this point. And how do we know this? Because King James not even born yet. You know? So these dudes were completely treacherous. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump here now. Now, all they was trying to do was completely take over, right? So at this time you had Roman Catholicism, in which obviously they were using as a cover up. Because that's all the Pope, the papacy, all that crap is just a cover up. These guys are not Israelites. They can't be a church because they're not Israelites. And that's why it's nothing but wickedness that take place in Catholicism. You see what I'm saying? So then eventually down the line, you have the likes of King James. You see what I'm saying? Who had attempts on his life because it was a fight for, it was good set against evil. And at this time, Esau is just trying to get his power back due to, they call this the Italian Renaissance. But a Renaissance is just a rebirth. The rebirth is just taking place completely, but they leave this part out. Now, and that's the iconoclasm. That's why this is being discussed right now, because they will be on their way to putting Jake out of their misery, getting rid of them completely. And I'm gonna show you in a second. So one of the ways that he was getting this done, that the Pope was setting up himself, He was directing his son. He was guiding his son to keep up his wickedness. All being a pope was for him was a cover up. And it's the same thing for the rest of them. His son was a military commander. These dudes were murderers, they were liars, and they were treacherous. And this is how they got their rise to power. Now, another avenue of doing that was having Leonardo da Vinci put with him. You see what I'm saying? It says, I'm gonna read down on this. So the Borgias, it says Borgia decided to set up his court in Imola and began implementing a comprehensive plan for the governance of his new dukedom. And who were the dukes? When you read the 37th chapter, I believe, of the generations of Esau, it tell you that Esau were dukes. Now you had during that time, just because that's just a so-called royal title, if you will. You had Jakes that were, going on the term dukes, but that always should make you think of Esau, because when you read the scriptures, that's the first person that title was put upon, Duke. And I'm bringing that out real quick. This is Genesis 37. Genesis 37. Salaki, Genesis 36. Genesis 36, and I'm going to start at 1. It says, now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. And I'm going to jump down to the point. Verse 15. These were dukes of the son of Esau. These were dukes of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau. Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah. So see, the dukes is that's given when you don't, no one else you get that title put is not put on anybody else in the scriptures but Esau. Just to denote so-called royalty. But you will see it amongst Jakes due to us taking over Rome, which makes sense. But anyway, so I'm going to keep going. It says, in many larger towns, so let me read it again. Borgia decided to set up his court in Imola and began implementing a comprehensive plan for the governance of his new dukedom. In many larger towns, he appointed local administrators who had not been tainted, you see, by corruption or links to their previous tyrants. For the most part, and they called King James a tyrant. If you watch the history on that, the true story on that, it says on King James, it says, for the most part, these figures were only too pleased to take part in the new administration and willingly swore their allegiance to the new duke. You see, where insufficient talent or expertise was available, educated young priests were recruited from the local monasteries, mainly to occupy clerical posts. All that type of talk and those different ventures, if you will, is the service of Israelites. That's what Israelites do. Esau don't do that, man. Now, real quick, this is Psalms 50. Because you're going to see the inception of everything going on before this is over with. Psalms 50, Lord willing. Psalms 50 and 16. But unto the wicked, God said, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee? When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentest with him. You see? And that's these people right here. It says, and has been partaker with adulterers. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. So the Lord is like, you are filthy. I've never picked you. You're disgusting. But yet this is how these devils try to carry themselves. And you go in their history, this is what's here. It says, thou givest thy mouth to evil and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. And Esau is the so-called, he's the brother of Yahweh Shai. And yet he said he's him. On a just getting to the nitty gritty. You want to kill King James. They killed William Tyndale. They killed all the disciples. They killed Yahweh Shai. You see? Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. And that's what we're getting to now. It says, thou slanderest thy own mother's son. Now watch this. So it says, these things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. Because over the history, Jake always going into captivity, Israelites always, in these different kingdoms suffering. But this is why Jake was able to allow it to be raised up one last good time before going into outright slavery on slave ships. You see what I'm saying? And before that happened, the Lord got the Bible translated because he knew we was going to stop speaking Hebrew. Because we were ruling Europe and all these English-speaking countries. See what I'm saying? Old English. The tongue would then translate from Hebrew, Latin, to the number one language, which would be English. So it all makes sense. So he raised us up one last good time. He allowed us to be raised up one last good time, as being royalty during the so-called Middle Ages, the dark ages, before the Renaissance, after Rome fell. So the Holy Roman Empire is when we were ruling Rome. That's why it's known as the Holy Roman Empire. And what did Esau do after our time was up? He started speaking against. While we was ruling, he started speaking against. You see? And you're finna see that in just a second. So it says, thou, these things, how? By saying he's the people, or they don't look like that, and by ways of iconoclasm, ultimately, damnatio memoriae, trying to erase us from history. His own mother's son, which is Jacob, Yaiquab, because he's Aisha. All these so-called white people, Cesare Borgia, Rodrigo Borgia, that's Esau, that's Aisha. They go on to speak against their own mother's son. That's what all of this is about. They hate Jacob and they hate, period. So they were taking out Edomites because Esau, but the ultimate enemy is Jacob, us, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. So this is what they were rebirthing. They were on their way to, they were having family issues among themselves as a nation. But ultimately, you're going to see is in stride. It's going to be in stride against us at the end of the day. You see? So it says, these things hast thou done, and I kept silent, by putting up Jesus, Cesare Borgia, so-called Jesus Christ, which wouldn't be the name, which is another. It's crazy, man. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such a one as thyself, but I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. And that's why the Lord allowed us to raise up after Rome fell. You see, a little bit on a royal level. And we left a lot of history. It says, now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear ye in pieces and there be none to deliver. All right, so now watch this. It says, although Borgia maintained garrisons at the major town and cities, these initially met with little opposition from citizenry. The people of Romana appeared hardly concerned with the treacherous methods Borgia had used to gain his territory. You see? They were simply pleased that the days of tyranny and lawlessness seemed to be over. See, they thought this because of the devil's slick tongue, man. As the scriptures talk about. This is Psalms 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. You see? I got one more. Psalms 28 and 3. Draw me not away with the wicked, and with the workers of iniquity, which speak peace to their neighbors, but mischief is in their hearts. See that? Now, so they played them, man. They were simply pleased that the days of tyranny and lawlessness seemed to be over. Now, this is the point. This is what his father set up to have done. He put Leonardo da Vinci, another devil, with him, right? Who's a famous artist. He's responsible for a lot of iconoclasm. Damnatio Memoriae, if you will. It says, meanwhile, Leonardo da Vinci was dispatched on a tour of the local fortresses, sketching their fortifications and suggesting improvements. As already mentioned, his duties were not confined to military matters, judging from the sketches. See, his duties were not confined to military matters, period. So he wasn't only just sketching their house, as this book would like you to believe. See, you just gotta take the meat from the bones, because there's crap in this book. It says, judging from the sketches of the region which appear in Leonardo's notebooks, because they're able to go back and they still have these guys as documents and stuff like that, man. Because what? Why? Leonardo was an Edomite. He didn't discontinue from his heritage, man. So all the stuff, they got his stuff right in museums and all of that, man. So they look at what he was drawing and stuff. They know. So why would he have Leonardo? Why would the sixth Pope Rodrigo, have Leonardo dispatched on duty, if you will, with his son to draw their fortifications and garrisons and stuff like that? No, that's not what went down. Because I'm gonna just jump. These are some of his sketches. See, who that look like? This is the so-called Last Supper. Before he made this one. And who does that look like in the middle? Which this would be a whole nother history lesson. Whole nother true story. This is iconoclasm, aka damnatio, memoriae, right in front of your face. Because this is not truly what happened and who was truly there. But this is what will be put forth, because Leonardo da Vinci at that time was going to become a renowned artist. So this is why. So if he's trying to have his son take over and ultimately take over the papacy, which is set up to fight against the Israelites' service, that's all it is, man. You had the Catholics trying to fight against the true believers of the Bible and tried to act like it was just a matter of disagreeing in doctrine. No, it was a matter of political and religious purposes. And these top elite Edomites understood this. Now, this image was not drawn by Leonardo da Vinci. So I just tend to ask you, because I'm gonna just cut it short, man. I'll just have to ask you: would you believe with these people being as vicious as the scriptures talk about them being? And these are clearly Edomites. You have Cesare Borgia to the left. The man was using his daughter, Lucrezia, however her name is pronounced, as bait. She married a bunch of different men because marrying into families is an easy way to gain access to royalty and the control. And this is just something. And then that's Rodrigo sitting down and all red. and these people conquered Rome. So don't you think that man, he would have that man draw his son? Wouldn't it make sense if they wanted to become, if they wanted this man, if he wanted his goals to become all powerful and become known as the prince, for him to be put in the image, replace the images that were just put up before they came back up. Remember, Rome fell all the way back in 400 AD. We're all the way in the 1400s now. So Jake was ruling for a long time. That's when all these are. That's where all these Russian icons are from, and they're plastered up all over the place with, so-called Black Jesus, Yahushua everywhere, the Black disciples. They can't do that. So their combat would be changing the images. You see what I'm saying? Lying to people, killing people, putting people in fear, but covering up to the simple minded by acting like they're holy people. That's all it's been. And then when you have real Israelites be raising up like King James, right, who came from that royal line. I mean, to be an Israelite is royalty in itself. But he came from the line that were out of the Israelites that were outright ruling. Because all Israelites, it's hierarchy amongst the Israelites. It's hierarchy amongst everything. He came from the line that was actually ruling. You see, that was appointed to lead. You see? And who would they They were going to combat him. Now, he was dead before Rodrigo, he was dead already. And his son went on to die in 1507. I believe King James was born like 1530 something. See what I'm saying? Now, that's pretty much that, man. This is a little bit from Machiavelli. Cesare survives. Machiavelli was the Florentine envoy with Borgia's court in Imola during this period. As such, he was in close contact with Borgia and able to study him closely. Machiavelli's conclusions were far from being as pessimistic as the circumstances seemed to warrant. Shrewdly, he took account of what he considered to be the two most salient facts: the character of Borgia himself and the implications of the wider political picture. You see, he's seeing what it was they was really trying to do. You see? Because what is iconoclasm again? It's the belief that you need to destroy documents and images and all these different things due to religious or political purposes, for political or religious reasons. If I'm trying to take back over, set my kingdom back up, because I just went into the caves, I can't have the people thinking these people are superior. Forget all of the terrorizing they was doing amongst themselves as Edomites. But eventually, once they got over that, they will come to us. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happened. So while Jake is ruling during this time, Esau's going ballistic. He's rising back up to power. He's taking that yoke off his neck, as the Lord said he would, man. This is Genesis. Look at this. I got an article. I'm gonna close this out. It says on October 23rd, he wrote to Sodorni, Florence, the territory of his lord, the territory of this lord, Cesare Borgia, has been governed largely by his good fortune. The main factor here being the general opinion that the king of France will support him with troops and the Pope will send the money to pay for them. And those were Jake's, man. And another factor is the delay of his enemies in launching a final attack on him. This was Machiavelli was a writer. So he was writing about his observance of being with this man. It says, and he was an Edomite himself. And in my opinion, it says, it is far too late now to do him any harm. because he had sent soldiers to protect all his important cities. These people took over. See, Esau was going back in that rulership. And what's still set up today? Papacy, the Pope. They just verified, so-called gay marriage or something like that. You see what I'm saying? And made sure that they are fully provisioned to withstand a siege. So there's some good stuff in here. I'm gonna get this real quick. Like I said, I'm gonna get this scripture, Lord willing. So these some of the people, the formidable ruler of Amola who attempted to divide Cesare Borgia. And a lot of these images, they lying about, man. A lot of these dudes is Jakes. This dude is a Jake, King Charles, King Louis, the 7th, the 12th, King Charles the 8th. These dudes were Israelites, man. So this book is crap. But it hits the point. This is the only verified portrait of Lucretia. She was bait, you know. This is another one, but the other one is verified. See, these people is crazy, man. These Edomites is the heart of every one of them is deep, as the scriptures say. And that's it. Maybe we'll come back. We'll go back into it. So this dude was set up, man. It's another book. And this is all the works of, Leonardo da Vinci. And we know that to be crap because here's Louis, it says the 13th, the so-called black man. See that? That's a whole nother thing. So how could Louis the 12th be Edomite, then Louis the 13th, he a black man? Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Stop it. Now, so this is understood by the scholars to be true. This is true history. This is from mun.org, so-called college. It's a treachery, incest, murder, and rape. Why religion and power don't mix. This is from August 6, 2019. The Borgia family is like the worst, confidently stated Marcantonio Colono, member of the notorious and incredibly scandalous Spanish family. You see, so you so-called Latinos, you're not Spanish, man, because these Edomites. That's how you know they conquered you. Now, this is what I want to get real quick. This is Genesis 27 and 38. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me even also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. You see what I'm saying? And how? This is how. By painting, setting up goddamn this dude, Leonardo da Vinci, to paint the Messiah as Cesare Borgia. You see what I'm saying? So he can go on and rule in his world. So they was able to use, because even though, let's say they didn't use the exact image that Leonardo da Vinci used, Leonardo da Vinci went on to become one of the most renowned artists of this Edomite so-called white supremacy rule world, man. To where you got so-called white Jesus everywhere, man. Because of this dude. Because he painted the image known as the what is it? Not only the Last Supper, but this one. Let's get a little bit of what they say, how brutal these guys are. From there, his nephew Rodrigo was accused of buying and bribing his way to the papacy when he was elected as Pope Alexander VI in 1492. Because of his powerful position within the church, you see, they're not a church. And you sound like a mob boss, man. How is this a church? When do churches move like that? They putting hits out on guys and getting to rise their power by how wicked you can be and calling your family to a banquet to slaughter them all, and you trying to be renowned for being just wicked. That's the circle. That's the environment these dudes are in. That's Esau. Because his powerful position within the church, he became lavishly wealthy and was rumored to have taken several mistresses and fathered numerous children. It says these members aren't the worst of them all. Rodrigo's children committed several sins that only furthered the family's reputation of being extremely sinful. Cesare, an established murderer by the age of 25, was widely reputed to have killed his older brother and slept with his sister. Lucretia especially has been a particular source of interest to historians around the world, being married off in a manner that resembles cattle being auctioned. Lucrezia was passed on from husband to husband, based on which would benefit her family more, known as the earliest femme fatales in history. Lucrezia was known for using her charm and beauty to win men's hearts. So they sound like Get Out. That's what they sound like, man. Steeped in sin and immorality, this family has lived throughout history as one of the most notorious and corrupt there ever was. And it's funny because they try to put the Borgia family as if they're not Edomites. They're not so-called white people. This is what you people do. It says, however, why are they specifically targeted? When history reports several other families of being equally sinful. You see that? See that? Because that's how slick Esau is. They throw each other under the bus. The easy answer is religion and power. You know, and that's pretty much that. Now, what I'm gonna do now? So these are some paintings from Leonardo da Vinci. You got the Last Supper. He painted the Mona Lisa, the Vitruvian Man. Yeah, Salvator Mundi is the image. All right. Now we're gonna go to this one real quick and close this out. They say exploring the theory that a modern image of so-called Jesus was based on a pope's son. When you're looking for a real life model for Jesus Christ, you'd be hard pushed to think of a less appropriate stand-in for the Prince of Peace than Cesare Borgia. Now that's funny because we just learned the Prince is what Machiavelli titled his book. You see, it tells you right there. When he was closely studying Cesare Borgia, it says and he marked that man as a damn lunatic. It says one of the most notorious members. You can get this book if you would like. It says one of the most notorious members of Renaissance, but it's not. It's just gonna really just show you how Esau get down these elites, how they gotta move. Elite Edomites. It says one of the most notorious members of Renaissance Italy's most notorious dynasties, the cruel Cesare was thought to be the inspiration of Niccolo Machiavelli, satirical handbook for would-be tyrants, the prince. So it say Jesus and art. thanks to his father, who became Pope Alexander VI in 1471. You see, so that's off. It says Cesare was made a bishop at the age of 15 and a cardinal at the age of 18. It says at this point, now what is this man doing that has anything to do with these things, these terms? It says at this point in history, the Pope directly ruled over a kingdom that dominated central Italy from its capital of Rome. Now we're going to jump down. Though a rising star in the church, Cesare fancied himself a military man, as we went into. It says there was one problem, though. His father had chosen that career for his older brother, Giovanni. Pope Alexander had appointed his pride and joy captain general of the church, the supreme commander of the Papal States Armed Forces. Coincidentally, in 1497, Captain General Giovanni Borgia was found floating lifelessly in the river Tiber. Cesare, so of all his men, all the men that he was going up against, and his counterparts were dealing like that. Because remember, the Bersini, the brothers, they were supposed to be teaming up with Cesare, but they wasn't trusted because they were all conspirators. They weren't really with each other. But that's his circle. That's how they got down. So wouldn't this make sense that, and they were after him. You see? They say killers respect killers, right? Cesare left the church, inheriting his brother's role, titles, and wealth. You see? So that's how he got it done, man. Plus the title of Duke Valentinos as a gift from the Pope's staunch ally King Louis the 12th of France, so-called black man. That's Giovanni Borgia right here, who was killed. You know, it's pretty much the dynamic of Esau and Jacob. He wanted the blessing, so when you got two Edomites involved, someone's gonna die, you know? So that's pretty much that. Now we're gonna jump down and get the point. It says, this very strange idea that one of the modern images of say Jesus, Yahweh Shai, is based on Cesare, originally comes from a claim made by the renowned novelist Alexandria Dumas and picked up and expanded upon by biblical theorists. The argument goes that Jesus, or Yahweh, was supposed to be Yahweh Shai, was originally depicted. You see? The argument goes that Yahweh Shai was originally depicted as, listen how he puts it, as appearing non-European because he was Jewish. That don't even make sense. So they hate to say, they know we're the Israelites, man. It says, which did not sit well with the Borgia Pope at the time. So in order to create a more European-looking Jesus, Pope, or Yahweh Shai, Pope Alexander VI commissioned new paintings of Yahweh Shai using his illegitimate son Cesare as their model. You see, because his father was over the government of the church. You see what I'm saying? So he can't be sitting around churches underneath, and he's already trying to take over Rome and, you know, get these Edomites, you know, in order. And he's coming for Jake next. He's not finna be sitting. That don't even make sense. They don't even worship God. You see, the Most High. So why do they need to have him in truth? You see what I'm saying? That's why the Lord said, "What have you do to take my covenant in your mouth?" You gonna mention it? Don't mention it. You gonna do what you do? Don't mention me. But here they are holding Bibles and scriptures and all this other stuff, but don't even read them or believe them. That's why they add to them and do all type of stuff not found in them. It says he then allegedly ordered the destruction of all art depicting Semitic Jesus. And it's crazy because they're Semitic. It says thereby popularizing one of the main enduring images of Jesus or Yahweh we have today. So the theory goes. You see? That's what happened, man. It is certainly true that the image of Cesare Borgia from the period are uncannily similar to the images of Christ or Hamashiach painted around the same time. Cesare even gazes serenely off canvas in his most famous depiction. His friendship with Leonardo da Vinci may have also helped popularize a particular depiction of Jesus or Yahweh Shah that echoed Caesare's appearance. Inevitably, given Caesare's reputation, they were also rumored to have been lovers. You see, then dude say he had a damn syphilis or something. But this is what this is called. It's called the Salvator Mundi. And this image inspired a lot of other images of so-called Jesus. Now, this is what's funny. It says, the dude's trying to say, it said, one problem is a similar theory. Yeah, here we go. A similar theory, this is the part I want. A similar theory which has been floating around post that Yahweh Shai says Jesus as a Jewish man, thus telling you the Jews are black. It says, was previously depicted, including you so-called Latinos and Native American Indians, man. It says, was previously depicted as a Middle Eastern figure. You see? They know that. What are they talking about? They're talking about the Russian icons. Because where else is Yahweh Shai depicted during the 1400s? See, they just all this is you just gotta go into the history and know the scriptures. It says, Spirit, the Lord gotta reveal it. It says, was previously depicted as a Middle Eastern figure until the outbreak of the Crusades made it politically unpalatable, right? Meaning untasteful, unsavory. It's bitter to the taste to them to have him resemble the enemy. Who's the enemy? And if he looked like a so-called black man, who is he talking about? Jacob. And then, ironically, King James is born like 30 years later and authorizes the Bible. And you Israelites walking around thinking this is a game. This is real. These people really existed, and this is what still is set up to this day. That Last Supper at your grandma's house, that was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. And it's a woman at the damn table. And it's not even 12 disciples. It's 13 people. Who painted that again? Who was put with the damn people taking during the Renaissance, retaking back over Rome when blacks were ruling? And where is Rome, Europe? During what time when the blacks were ruling? Let me read it again. A similar theory which has long been floating around post that Jesus, Yahweh Shah, as a Jewish man, was previously depicted as a Middle Eastern figure until the outbreak of the Crusades made it politically unpalatable to have him resemble the enemy. See that? You can't make this up. One problem with this, so this is retarded. This dude don't know history. He don't understand words. And that's pretty much it, man. So this is retarded right here. It says another problem is that it ignores the evidence. Jesus began to appear as a figure with a beard and long hair in the 5th century. That's a damn lie. It says, and his skin tones varied across this period largely to reflect whichever culture had created the image. That's a lie. And this is, look what they say, Jesus cleansing a leper. Yahushua cleansing a leper. What is leprosy? He got leprosy on here. But you see, they make him look like him, and they say leprosy. They put bumps, not leprosy, man. These people in this pit, now all of them I got a Bible sitting here telling me how everybody black in it. And you just said before this time that he was depicted as a non-European looking individual, whatever is Middle Eastern, which all the Middle Eastern people besides you people, you so-called white people, you Edomites, you fake Jews, are all brown. It look like you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. That's all this is saying. So Lord willing, this has been edifying. I'm not even gonna keep going on this. This is where all this comes from, man. I have a PDF here, right here, real quick, and I'm gonna close out on this. I read the scripture till it comes up. This is Hebrews 12 and 16. Lest there be any profane fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. You see, for ye know how afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, see, that's why they had to come up with the inheritance of papacy, because these so-called white people don't have an inheritance. They so obsessed with inheritance and being royal. That's why they got the Queen Elizabeth and all that, because they want to be you. They know these things exist. Man, you rather be slaves and workers at Best Buy and Buffalo Wild Wings. It says, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, meaning Esau can't repent. He can't turn back to something he never had. That's what repenting is. It says, though he sought it carefully with tears. You see that? I don't know what this thing's doing. So Lord willing, this has been edifying. So-called Mashiach, Yahushua, so-called black man, father, so-called black man, the angel, so-called black man, the Israelite, so-called black people, right? So-called with brown, but black meaning dark skin, man. Israelites consist of dark skinned people. Israelites are all melanated people, in other words. You see, so-called black people. Many shades of brown, all right? Get through the family line. These people really existed, man. All right? I'm going to tell you how vicious they were on here. The Borgia family have become a byword for evil, corruption, incest, ruthlessness, megalomania, avarice, and vicious cruelty. All have been associated with their name. And yet, paradoxically, this family lived when the Renaissance was coming into its full flowering in Italy. See that? So this Renaissance was real, man. So they was a part of it. So if iconoclasm is what the Renaissance is primed off of, who had a big piece in it? The Pope, Rodrigo Borgia. So it's not a coincidence that Jesus, right, so-called Jesus, Yahweh Shai, looks just like Cesare Borgia. This dude's doing anything he could to get the job done. Anything. So this is a real wicked family. This is a true story. And Lord willing, it's been edifying. I'm going to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Wahakodash Wakah. To the next lesson. Shalom.